You opened a savings account, made a few deposits, then stopped. Sound familiar to you? Most people quit saving right before it actually starts working. That is the real tragedy. And the worst part is they never even realize how close they were to succeeding. My name is Ryan, and I spend way too much time thinking about personal finance. If you have ever started saving and then just stopped, this video is for you. Make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up today. Now, here is something that probably nobody told you when you first started saving money. Saving money feels pointless for a very long time before it ever starts to matter. That feeling of nothing happening is not a personal failure. It is a math thing. And once you understand the math behind it, everything about saving money changes for you. Here is the thing. Most people quit long before the math ever gets to work. They stop because progress feels invisible, and invisible progress is easy to walk away from. Think about the last time you checked your savings and felt genuinely excited by it. For most people, that moment either never comes or it comes way too late entirely. And that is exactly what this video is going to help you understand and fix. But first, we need to talk about why quitting feels completely logical in the moment. Because it does feel logical. You save money for months and nothing changes at all. You watch others spending freely and start wondering if saving is even worth the sacrifice. That feeling is real, but acting on it costs you far more than you think. So why do people quit? And what does the real data actually say about this? According to Bankrate, over half of Americans cannot cover a $1,000 emergency expense. But the advice is always just this: spend less, save more. That does not help. That advice misses the point entirely because it ignores why people actually stop saving money. People quit saving because their expectations were wrong, not because they lacked discipline or willpower. Nobody told them how long the early phase of saving would feel like nothing, and that uncomfortable silence is where most people eventually walk away. Think about it this way. You plant a seed and water it every single day without ever seeing even one visible sign of growth emerge. At some point, a reasonable person would stop watering that seed and simply assume it was dead, then go find something else to do instead. But here is the problem with that decision. The seed was not dead. It was actually on the very verge of breaking ground right then. That is exactly what happens when people stop saving. They walk away right before the real momentum was about to kick in and change everything. And the frustrating thing is that you cannot see the momentum while it is building. That is the whole point I want you to understand. This is where it actually gets really interesting. Let me walk you through a simple example using real numbers because this is where it clicks. Say you save $200 a month starting at age 25 with a 7% annual return on your investments over 40 years. In the first 5 years, your account barely seems to grow. You have saved around $12,000, but it barely feels like real progress. This is exactly the phase where most people stop. They look at $12,000 and decide that saving is simply not working for them. But look at what happens if they had stayed. By year 15, that same $200 a month has grown to around $60,000. Not because they started saving more money, the amount stayed the same. The compound interest just finally had enough time to start building real momentum. And by age 65, that exact same $200 a month has grown into nearly $500,000 just from staying consistent. $500,000 from just $200 a month. That is not magic. It is simply math working across enough time without any interruptions. Now, you might be thinking that sounds great, but you are too old to start. And that thought is exactly what I want to address. Here is what most people do not realize. The best time to start was 20 years ago. The second best time is right now today. This video is really about understanding what happens inside your brain when saving progress feels invisible and you start looking for any reason to quit. Because the decision to quit saving is rarely a financial decision. It is almost always a psychological one driven by something called the progress illusion. The progress illusion is real. Our brains expect results to feel proportional to effort, but compound interest just does not work that way at all. With compound interest, most of the growth happens in the later years, not the early ones you are actually watching and waiting on every day. For a very long time, it genuinely looks like nothing is happening. And your brain interprets that quiet as failure, even when it is not. There is a name for this in behavioral economics. It is called hyperbolic discounting, which means we instinctively undervalue future rewards over more immediate ones. In simple terms, your brain prefers $20 today over $200 later. That invisible bias works against your savings more than almost anything else. The financial industry mostly ignores this. They say, automate your savings and forget it, then wonder why so many people still quit before it works. Automating helps, but it does not fix the psychological battle happening inside your head every time you check your balance and see almost nothing there. Everything gets decided in that single quiet moment of doubt, not in your budget, not in your bank, but right there inside your own head. That single moment of doubt is where savings accounts get closed, habits get abandoned, and years of potential growth simply disappear forever without any warning. So how do you fight something you cannot see? How do you stay committed to a process that shows almost no visible results for years? The answer is not more willpower. It is not another budgeting app. It actually comes down to changing how you measure your own financial progress. Most people measure savings by the balance in their account. That is the wrong metric, and it is silently destroying your motivation every single time. Your balance is a lagging indicator. It reflects what happened weeks or months ago, not what your consistent saving habit is actually building right now. Instead, measure your streak. Measure how many consecutive months you have contributed consistently. That number is the real indicator of your future financial outcome ahead. Researchers at Duke University found that any behavior repeated consistently for 60 days becomes nearly automatic. That same principle applies directly to your saving habits. The goal in the early months is not to grow your wealth. The goal is simply to build the habit so deeply it becomes effortless. Once the habit is locked in, the math will take over. You just need to survive the early phase long enough for that to happen. Here is where it gets really interesting. The habit itself becomes a financial asset because it is the engine driving all of your future wealth. Think about two people starting from nothing. One saves consistently for 40 years. The other waits a decade, then tries catching up by depositing more. The consistent saver almost always wins. Not because they contributed more money, but because time is the single most powerful ingredient in building real wealth. A Fidelity study found that investors who never touched their portfolios outperformed active traders by significant margins. Doing nothing is often the best financial move. Let that sink in. The best performing investors were often the ones who set it up and then completely forgot about their investments for years. Now you might be thinking, okay, Ryan, but what if the market drops? What if I lose everything right when I need the money most? That fear is valid and I respect it, but it is also one of the main reasons people never start building any savings at all. Here is what data shows. The S&P 500 has never produced a negative return over any rolling 20-year period in recorded history. That means if you stay invested for 20 years or longer, history shows you have essentially never lost money. Time removes most real market risk. The market dropping is not the real danger. Panic selling at the worst possible moment is what actually destroys long-term wealth for most people. Think of a market crash like a store sale. Prices are lower, which means it is actually a better time to keep buying, not stop. Understanding risk matters, but sticking to your saving plan when progress feels completely invisible is a very different and much harder kind of personal challenge. There are 3 psychological traps that pull people away from saving, and I want you to recognize each one before they quietly derail your progress. The first trap is lifestyle inflation. Every time your income rises, your spending quietly expands to match it without you ever consciously noticing it happening. You get a raise, upgrade your lifestyle a little, and suddenly you are earning more but saving almost exactly the same as you were before. The fix is simple but uncomfortable. When income increases, immediately raise your automatic savings contribution before you have any chance to spend the extra money. The second trap is comparison. Social media shows vacations and new cars, but nobody ever posts their savings balance, and that creates a completely false picture. You start feeling behind even when you are not, and you start wondering why you are sacrificing when everyone else looks like they are thriving. Here is what most people miss. Many people who look wealthy online are actually quietly drowning in consumer debt behind the scenes right now today. Nearly 40% of Americans carry revolving credit card debt monthly, according to the Federal Reserve. Appearances and actual financial health are rarely the same thing. The third trap is emergencies. One rough month causes you to pause saving, and that pause quietly becomes months or years of doing absolutely nothing. Build what I call a savings firewall, which is a separate emergency fund used only to protect your long-term savings from life's unexpected costs. Most financial advisors suggest 3 to 6 months of expenses saved, but even $1,000 creates a meaningful buffer against most everyday financial emergencies. Once that buffer exists in a separate account, small emergencies no longer become the reason you abandon your long-term savings progress entirely and permanently. Discipline alone is never enough to keep people saving. The real secret is designing an environment where saving happens almost completely on its own automatically. Set up automatic transfers on payday before your money ever reaches your checking account. What you never see, you never miss, and you never spend. This is called paying yourself first, and it is one of the oldest and most consistently proven wealth-building principles in all of personal finance. It works because you removed the decision entirely. No decision means no temptation, and no temptation means you never get the chance to choose otherwise. Start with a savings amount that feels almost too small to matter. Even $50 a month invested consistently becomes something genuinely meaningful over enough time. Every 3 months, raise your contribution by just $10. You barely notice it now, but over time, the compounding effect becomes genuinely life-changing. This technique is called contribution escalation, and behavioral economists found it to be one of the most effective ways to grow savings without real discomfort. Most people focus only on the financial mechanics of saving, but the mental side matters just as much, and most people completely ignore it, unfortunately. Connect your savings to a concrete future vision, not vague retirement someday, but a specific scene with a location, a lifestyle, and a daily routine. Research from Vanguard shows that savers who describe a vivid, specific retirement goal are significantly more likely to stay consistent with their contributions long-term. Abstract goals receive low priority from your brain, but vivid, specific goals feel real, and your brain will actively work to protect and preserve them. Write your future vision down and make it vivid. That one habit becomes an anchor holding you steady when doubt and temptation come knocking later. You now understand the traps, the math, and the psychology. The only remaining step is the most important one, simply choosing to start right now. Not next Monday and not after your next raise. Those delays are exactly how another 5 years quietly vanish, with zero meaningful financial progress to show. Every day you delay is one lost day of compounding. Time is the one financial resource that you can simply never earn back or replace. The people who retire comfortably are not necessarily the smartest or highest earners. They are simply the ones who started early and never stopped contributing. You are not behind, and you are not too late. You are one decision away from being the person who started. Make that decision today.